Good morning. I just woke up, so you get to talk to me while I do my makeup. Why are we doing makeup? Because I got a vlog, so you're gonna join me. Can we talk about puberty for a second? Here is my Zanga journal from December 6th, 2005. It has been a hot second. So in light of recent events, I have taken a lot of time to think. Good, Nicole. Good start. And it's not really about my problems. It's about how other people's problems are really beginning to annoy me because they aren't really big problems. And it bothers the effing poo. I said effing. E-F-F-I-N apostrophe. And then there are people who complain not about having friends anymore or whatever because every time people see them, they're like perfectly fine. They're surrounded by a huge group of people who love them and have it much better than other people. I'm so sure there are much worse things than having a bad hair day. Making big deals out of the smallest things are really blah, blah, blah. High school changes so many people so drastically, and I can only hope that I won't drift away from my friends. I can only hope I will make new friends. Smiley, smiley. I hope that these silly cliques won't be barriers for friendships. And I can only hope that life will stay, for the most part, happy. How surreal this life is. I am so dramatic. My parents think I'm wallowing in self-pity, when in fact I'm only contemplating my thoughts in such a manner that it makes me rather sad. It's not self-pity, it's pity for others. Empathy for the people I care about. Lesson 3. Oh well. But it doesn't matter today because I made French food stuff today and it was yummy. Lesson 3. Christmas is coming up. Whoa, so soon. Anyway, that's enough. Lesson 3. N little I, C-O-L-E. P.S. If I were a fermata, would you hold me? Let's start doing makeup. Can we talk about what you were like at 16? Around this time, I think I had totally totaled my car. I had an unrequited crush on the same guy since 8th grade. Shout out to Matthew Morrell, wherever you are. I loved anime and animals. I was really dumb. I was super hormonal. I liked to cry. I hated wearing dresses because I was still going through like my rebellious, look at me, I'm a tomboy phase. And my worries were relatively little. When I go back and read these things, it's funny because I'm surprisingly introspective for a 16-year-old and yet really dumb for a 16-year-old. That is the epitome of being a sophomore in high school. Sophomore means wise fool because I thought I was wise, but really I was just an idiot. Because I'm 16, I'm a child. Do you know that your brain isn't fully formed until about 25? Okay, according to Rochester University, the rational part of a teen's brain is not developed until 25 or so. The prefrontal cortex is the rational part of your brain, and that basically means I wasn't really an adult until 3 years ago. The connections between the emotional part of the brain and the decision-making center are still developing and not necessarily at the same rate. That's why teens experience overwhelming emotional input and they can't explain later what they were thinking. They weren't thinking as much as they were feeling. Okay, so Nicole, why are you going on a rampage about what it means to be 16? Because if you haven't heard about CYNTOIA Brown yet, you're obviously not watching the news. CYNTOIA Brown was a 16-year-old girl who shot a man in the back of the head. And you're probably going, okay, well, she deserves life in prison. But also, she's 16. We have a juvenile court that was created specifically to help rehabilitate young girls like CYNTOIA Brown. There are so many other cases about young kids, 10, 12, as young as 7, who are being tried as adults even though we specifically have a juvenile court system. Does that not drive you crazy? It drives me absolutely insane. Let me give you some background on CYNTOIA Brown. Now that we've given background on me as a 16-year-old, and everyone knows I'm the most important person on this planet. Just kidding. I am Freddie's world. CYNTOIA Brown was born to Georgina Mitchell. Gina Mitchell was 16 when she had CYNTOIA. Gina's mother had her first child from rape. We are already seeing the beginning of mental illness and trauma in their lives. All right, so let's go back to Gina. Because Gina was 16 and a child, and we've already established that children are stupid, especially 16-year-olds, her way of escaping the fact that she was pregnant was to go to the bottle. And she openly admits that she drank all throughout the pregnancy and for the first 8 months of CYNTOIA's life. Whenever CYNTOIA was born, they diagnosed her with fetal alcohol syndrome, which means poor development in the brain. She already has a rough start to life. And then on top of that, Gina gets into crack cocaine. CYNTOIA is taken away from her mother. She is put into foster care. Within the first 3 years of her life, she sees 6 to 7 families. And I'm sure some of those families did really well by her, but she never gets to attach to any one person. Do you know how important the first 3 years of your life is? No, you can't remember half of it, but that psychologically has a huge effect. I really need to call a therapist and see if she'll talk to you about it, because these are important things. Maybe tomorrow. Eventually, CYNTOIA, the little girl, lands with Ellenette Brown, and they become CYNTOIA's adoptive parents. However, her adoptive dad, was abusive. He was a truck driver and would slap her around just because he felt like it. Actually, that's a literal quote from CYNTOIA. "Why did you slap me? Because I felt like it." CYNTOIA is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and the courts know this. The courts know that she is not right in the head, and I can say this as someone who is also not right in the head. Shout out to all my Lexapro babies, because if you're not on it, basically, I think you're crazy. When CYNTOIA hits the age of 16, she runs away from home. She runs away from home and meets this man named Cutthroat. First of all, he doesn't even spell it cutthroat. He spells it K-throat, which is dumb. He basically becomes her pimp. She calls him her boyfriend, but this is so common in human sex slavery, where this young, impressionable 16-year-old girl doesn't understand what's happening to her. She goes to this guy, says, "Ooh, please accept me," and he says, "Sure, great. It's all nice and fun and games," until he's like, "Hey, you need to bring in money." At 16 years old, she counted 36 people that she has had sex with. 21 of them were non-consensual. 3 of them were relatives. And this, to her, was completely normal, because the only way that she ever saw intimacy was through porn. And apparently the porn that she had been exposed to were the ones where the girl, starfishes. Alright, I got one eye done. Okay, so Cutthroat has already decided that he's done bow chicka wow wow with CYNTOIA, and now she needs to bring in some cash. So he sends her off. This is, she's known him for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So she wanders off to a local Sonic, finds this guy, Mr. Allen, and her direct quote is, "I want someone to desire me." And this guy is seeking it out through a 16-year-old sex worker. Whew. He brings her home. He used to be a sharpshooter in the army, apparently. He has 2 shotguns that she immediately recognizes, another chrome gun with a black handle. And at some point, she pretends to fall asleep. He rolls over. She thinks he's gonna grab a gun. She immediately starts to freak out. Pulls out a gun out of her bag that Cutthroat had given her, shoots him in the back of the head, and flees with his wallet, because she knows that Cutthroat will get really pissed if she leaves empty-handed. This is the only logical thing in her head is, I'm going to kill this dude, but I'm going to get in trouble with Cutthroat first. So the courts decide to try her as an adult. 2 eyes done. First-degree murder. An intentional murder that is willful and premeditated with malice aforethought. Second-degree murder. Any intentional murder with malice aforethought, but is not premeditated or planned in advance. I think that's closer to second-degree murder. She thought he was going to kill him. He's already said multiple times that he was a sharpshooter, and look at all these guns. Let me show these guns to you. I'm gonna be freaking out. Let's go to the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration defines ACEs as stressful or traumatic childhood events including abuse and neglect. Abuse breaks down a child. It lowers self-esteem. It affects brain development and alters the structure of the parts of the brain that control impulse and emotion, all of which a trafficker can spot from a mile away. Another big factor is being homeless or runaway, which clearly both of these things apply to CYNTOIA. She's already hitting a double whammy. In fact, 1 in 5 homeless youth are estimated to become victims of sex trafficking due to these vulnerabilities. CYNTOIA Brown killed a man. She wiped away his life, and he is no longer here. And does that mean that she needs to pay for it? Yes, of course. It means that she does have to be held responsible, but that doesn't mean that the onus of responsibility lies strictly on her. But does that mean that she doesn't need to experience life outside of a prison cell? That she can't leave until she's 69 years old? I don't know how many other ways I could say she was a 16-year-old runaway who already had been beaten down by life. She was not developing at the same rate as I was at 16, and I was an idiot. So what can you do about it? You can like, share, subscribe, hashtag Free CYNTOIA Brown, and spread the word. We need to do something to protect the other girls who will inevitably follow in her path. So while CYNTOIA might still be in jail, and while I truly believe that there is still hope for her, let's look at how we can affect the future. Love 146 is working to end child trafficking and exploitation around the world by addressing biological, psychological, social, financial, and spiritual impacts of victimization to help youth develop strategies to stay safe. Youth Spark is changing the face of human trafficking and child exploitation rates in Atlanta, Georgia. It provides investigative research, policy advocacy, and training because its staff knows how important it is to address the measurable impact of child exploitation. I mean, y'all, I could go on and on about these grant partners that DRESSEMBER has, and how you, right there, you staring from the other side of the screen, you are not helpless. You can do something about it. Anyway, if you think that CYNTOIA Brown was guilty, I want you to go read some articles, do your own research, and tell me why. And then I also want you to dig up some piece of you at 16 and let me know, how smart were you? How smart were you and how privileged was your upbringing? I had my fair share of sneaking out of the house and crashing cars and doing idiotic things. And that was with a wonderful upbringing. In the description box below, I'm going to post CYNTOIA's documentary from 2006, I think. I will post a couple more articles about the most recent updates. And then, as always, I have the link to donate to DRESSEMBER through my campaign. And I want this to be a starting point. You have a voice, so use it. I'm in a dress. My hair is at the length of the woman that goes, excuse me, may I see your manager? Actually, this whole rant was kind of, can I see your manager? You are your manager!